This is the last thing that Lee expected to see. This deserted market was their only hope. Inside were food, water, medicine, flashlights, batteries, and more. Their family needed these things, but they couldn't speak a word. They were so terrified that they couldn't even whisper. It was complete silence. Lee, his wife Evelyn, their eldest daughter Reagan, and their 2 young sons, Marcus and little Bo, needed supplies urgently. That's why they entered this supermarket located on the outskirts of town. If they made any noise, they might attract unwanted attention. It was a risk they had to take. The place looked like a tomb. Only the sound of their own footsteps broke the eerie silence. Lee carefully selected some items. He took bottles of water and placed them in the cart. Evelyn grabbed some bread and canned food while Reagan scanned the shelves for batteries and flashlights. Their task was to gather as many supplies as possible and leave without making a single sound. The slightest noise could attract unwanted attention. Suddenly, little Marcus noticed a pack of cookies. He pointed at it and begged for one, but Lee shook his head. There was no time to waste. Lee carried the cart while Evelyn walked next to him. In front of them was Reagan, who pushed a cart with supplies. The younger boys followed behind her. As they moved through the aisles, the desperate parents kept looking over their shoulders, half expecting to see someone or something there. But the only thing that accompanied them was an oppressive silence. All around them were shelves stacked with goods, food, clothing, hygiene products. The supermarket was a treasure trove of essential supplies. Then suddenly, little Bo, the youngest of the family, stopped. His gaze was fixed on a toy rocket on a shelf. He wanted it. Without hesitation, he reached out for it. For a moment, it seemed like the rocket would fall from the shelf, but Reagan, who was walking past, caught it just in time. She didn't hear anything, but her quick reaction saved everyone's lives. A loud noise could have attracted unwanted attention, potentially endangering the entire family. Lee turned to his family, realizing it was getting late and they needed to return home. The journey back in the dark would be dangerous. Using sign language, he conveyed the message to his family, urging them to hurry up. But Bo turned back. He wanted the toy rocket. To make sure Bo didn't make any noise, Lee took the rocket away from him. Looking closely, Lee saw that the rocket was equipped with batteries. Bo started crying. The family stood in silence, frozen in fear. If anyone outside heard Bo's cries or the sound of the rocket, it could mean certain death for them. After a while, Lee managed to calm the boy down. He promised Bo they would return for the rocket the next day. Then they continued on their way, still in complete silence. As the family walked along the path covered with sand, Lee kept glancing over his shoulder. He felt like they were being watched, stalked by some invisible threat. Bo lagged behind. Picking up a stone, he threw it into the distance. The sound echoed ominously in the unsettling quietude. Reagan noticed her brother lagging behind. Without making a sound, she approached Bo and secretly handed him the rocket. Bo's face lit up with joy. He happily carried the rocket like a precious treasure. The family continued walking. In the eerie silence, Lee and Evelyn walked in front. Reagan and Marcus walked next to each other, and little Bo brought up the rear. Throughout their journey, Bo kept hold of the rocket. Suddenly, he decided to play with the batteries. He placed them inside the rocket. It emitted a strange noise. Reagan couldn't hear it, but Lee and Evelyn froze in terror. From the bushes nearby, a terrifying monster emerged. It rushed towards Bo at lightning speed. Lee instantly sprinted to his son, but it was too late. The monster snatched Bo away, ending his life in an instant. The creature stood over the dead body of the child for a moment, letting out a deafening roar. And then it vanished into the undergrowth. A year has passed since the apocalypse. Lee is seen conducting research in a locked room. On the table before him is a list of demands. Among them are the monster's greatest strengths and weaknesses. They are blind but have incredibly sharp hearing. Even the slightest breath or the tiniest sound from miles away, they can hear it all and they will attack immediately. Their skin is harder than steel, which means conventional weapons are useless against them. According to the data, these monsters came to Earth via a meteor, and in a short amount of time, they destroyed the entire world. The only way to survive is to keep absolutely quiet. In the corner of the room is a large screen displaying live feeds from the many CCTV cameras Lee has installed around the house. There are currently 3 monsters in their area. Using a walkie-talkie, Lee relays messages to those outside doing research. So far, they haven't been able to figure out the monster's weaknesses. But if he can determine that, then maybe there is still hope for humanity. He's also tried contacting the outside world via radio, but so far, no one has ever responded. Down in the underground bunker is where Lee spends most of his time. His wife, Evelyn, is heavily pregnant and due to give birth any day now. If their baby's cries escape the bunker, it would put them all at risk. So Lee has built a soundproof box where she can give birth. In the other room is a large device that Lee has built. It's a special hearing aid for his daughter, Reagan. The plan is for her to use it to listen for the monsters. But so far, every attempt has ended in failure. One day, Reagan tries the new hearing device. At first, nothing happens. But then suddenly, she breaks down crying. Overjoyed, Lee runs to comfort her. She tells him that she can hear him. Then she asks if she can go outside, but Lee refuses, warning her of the danger. Reagan insists, though, saying that she wants to try again to contact the outside world. Lee eventually gives in. Meanwhile, Evelyn is busy tidying up the house. While doing laundry, she accidentally steps on a nail. In pain, she drops a picture frame. Outside, a monster is attracted by the sound and sneaks inside. Evelyn is too scared to scream. She slowly backs away, hoping to get past the monster without being seen. But it spots her and advances. Trembling with fear, Evelyn thinks of a plan. She grabs a nearby bucket and uses it as a timer. Just as the monster lunges, she throws the bucket away. Startled by the sudden movement, the monster becomes distracted. Seizing the opportunity, Evelyn hides behind a door. But there is another monster lurking outside. Noticing Evelyn, it sneaks closer. Just when it's about to strike, Lee rushes in and fires a flare rocket. Startled by the noise, both monsters run off. Lee rushes back to the main room, grabbing his rifle as he runs. He sees Evelyn standing outside with a bloody foot. She explains that she stepped on a nail and cut her foot. Lee helps her bandage it up and apologizes for not being there. Suddenly, Evelyn doubles over in pain. She's gone into labor. Lee helps her into the soundproof room. Because of the monsters outside, this delivery will be more dangerous than normal. Meanwhile, Reagan is outside trying to contact the outside world. She calls out for help, but there's no response. Suddenly, she hears a noise and hides behind a car. One of the monsters approaches, drawn by Reagan's scent. She holds her breath, hoping to avoid detection. But the monster spots her and advances. Just as it's about to attack, a flare rocket flies overhead. Startled, the monster runs off. Lee had fired it to alert Reagan. Hearing this, she runs home. Back in the main room, Evelyn is still in labor. Lee anxiously waits outside the soundproof room. Suddenly, Evelyn's screams can be heard. The monster outside the house becomes alerted and begins to advance. Lee grabs his rifle and runs to the window. He spots the monster and aims. But as he pulls the trigger, the monster runs off. Leaving the rifle behind, Lee rushes to the soundproof room. Inside, Evelyn and Reagan are hugging the newborn baby. The three of them are overjoyed to have survived. As they embrace, the camera pans out, leaving us to wonder about the fate of humanity. From afar, the rocket's noise and lights could be seen. When Reagan noticed them, she immediately rushed back home. Sometime later, Lee entered the house with his gun. Everything was fine until he saw the bloodstains on the stairs. He wiped off the blood and followed those marks. He reached the bathroom and saw the tub was filled with blood. Lee understood that Evelyn had also become the monster's prey. He sat down crying. Suddenly, he heard a noise. Someone was trying to exit the shower room. It was Evelyn. She had miraculously survived. She had given birth to a baby in that horrible situation. Lee was left shocked. The baby started crying, so he quickly took Evelyn and the baby to the underground room where a soundproof box had been made for the child. They were almost there when the baby cried again. A monster had heard the sound and was approaching them. Lee rushed inside, shut the door, and placed the baby in the box to muffle the sound. For a short while, they felt safe. Lee told Evelyn that he had discovered the creature's weakness and would soon create a weapon to destroy them. Meanwhile, Reagan was walking back home. She saw a light shining in the fields. As she bent to pick it up, Marcus suddenly held her hand from behind. They reunited, but Marcus told her that a monster had just been following her and suddenly ran away. Reagan grew terrified. She hadn't even noticed it was so close. Back home, Evelyn was worried about the children, so she sent Lee to find them. As Lee left, water began to flood the house. A pipe had burst. Evelyn saw that her baby was still alive. Just then, a monster also entered. The water was rising, but she stood still, holding her baby, making sure not to make a single sound. In the underground room, Lee found Reagan and Marcus. He told them everything, how Evelyn had given birth and how they needed to kill the monsters. Reagan said she had an idea and asked them to come with her. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Evelyn prayed that her baby would stay silent. Suddenly, the baby cried. The monster froze. It was attracted towards the sound. Evelyn understood if she didn't do anything, the monster would find them. So, she did the unthinkable. She jumped into the tub, trying to drown out the baby's cries. As the monster approached, she hugged her baby tightly, shielding him with her body. She knew she might not survive, but she was ready to sacrifice herself to protect her child. At that moment, Lee, Marcus, and Reagan arrived. They had brought weapons to destroy the monster. The creature was almost on top of Evelyn when Lee fired at it. The bullet hit its head and the monster fell. Finally, they had won. But their victory was bittersweet. Evelyn had sacrificed herself. The three of them came out of the house, each lost in thought. They had survived the apocalypse. But at what cost? Evelyn was dead, and now they had to find a way to raise her baby. Marcus knelt down and picked up a flower. He handed it to Reagan, a small smile on his face. She took the flower and they stayed in silence for a while. Suddenly, Marcus took out a knife and cut his palm. Blood trickled down his fingers. He looked up at Reagan, his eyes filled with determination. She understood what he was doing. This was their new world now. They had to adapt or die. So Reagan did the same, cutting her palm. Their blood mingled together, a symbol of their bond, their survival, and their promise to carry on. They returned to the house, leaving the dead monster behind. The journey was tough, but they had each other, and that made all the difference. The end. They ran as fast as they could, but the noise they made attracted the monster. It reared its ugly head just as they reached the car. They had nowhere to go. This was the end. But then Marcus noticed something. Reagan's hearing aid was emitting a strange, high-pitched sound. The monster couldn't stand it. It roared in pain and fell to the ground writhing. Then it let out one last deafening screech before collapsing to the ground. It was dead. Lee looked at his children, his heart filled with pride. He had taught them well, but he also knew they weren't out of the woods yet. There were still other monsters out there. He told them to run to the car. He would hold off the creatures just a little longer. He didn't want his children to see what was about to happen next. As the monsters approached, their eyes glowing red in the darkness, Lee stood his ground. He kept shooting until his gun was empty. But it wasn't enough. The monsters closed in on him, their claws and teeth bared. He screamed in pain as they tore into him. But even as he fought for his life, he kept thinking about his daughter. What if she didn't make it? What would become of her? The thought spurred him on. He wouldn't give up. Not while he had a single breath left in him. Meanwhile, Reagan and Marcus got into the car. They watched in horror as the monsters closed in on their father. Just when all hope seemed to be lost, Lee did something that made Reagan's blood run cold. He took off his wedding ring and held it out toward the monsters. They stopped and stared at the ring, their eyes glowing brighter than ever. Then, as if hypnotized, they began to walk away. Slowly at first, then faster and faster until they disappeared into the darkness. Reagan and Marcus were stunned. Why did the monsters leave their father alone? Was he part of their plan, or was he just lucky? They didn't know the answer, but they didn't have time to find out. They had to get out of there. Just then, Evelyn came running out of the house. She had seen the monsters approaching and had grabbed her gun. When she saw that they were leaving Lee alone, she knew something was wrong. So she ran over to them, firing a shot into each one of the monsters. They fell to the ground, twitching. "Dad," Reagan whispered, rushing over to Lee. He was still breathing, but he was badly injured. "Don't worry about me, honey," he said. "I'm okay. I just need to rest." But Reagan could see that he was lying. Her father was dying. Suddenly, she remembered what he had said about the creatures being repelled by sound. She quickly removed her hearing aid and handed it to Evelyn. "You need to shoot it, Evie." "Now," Reagan said, her voice shaking. "I think he's trying to tell us something." Evelyn didn't understand at first, but then she looked at the monsters and realized what Reagan was talking about. The sound from the hearing aid was causing the creature's skin to bubble and boil. That's why they had left Lee alone. He had no hearing aid to amplify the sound, so the creatures hadn't attacked him. But now that they had the hearing aid, Evelyn knew exactly what to do. She connected it to a microphone and turned it up full blast. The sound was so loud that it hurt Reagan's ears, but she kept it going until the creature's skin began to peel away from its body. Then she fired a bullet straight into its head. It exploded, killing the monster instantly. 2 more monsters were closing in, but Reagan and Evelyn were ready. They knew the creature's weakness, and they weren't afraid. Together, they took down the monsters one by one until there were none left. Finally, Reagan understood how deeply her father had always loved her. He had been willing to sacrifice himself for her, to protect her, to give her a chance at a better life. She hugged Evelyn tightly. "Thank you for saving my dad and I," she whispered. "We couldn't have done it without you." Then they heard a noise in the house. Someone or something was moving around inside. Suddenly, another monster appeared. It was huge, with sharp teeth and claws. It lunged at them, but Evelyn shot it dead before it could reach them. Reagan and Marcus looked at each other. They had survived the worst of it, but they knew that this was only the beginning. There were still other monsters out there, and they would keep coming back. But now they knew the creature's weakness, and they weren't afraid. They were ready to fight back.